everybody, and welcome to the first episode of The Risk Matrix.
The Risk Matrix.
The Risk Matrix is hosted by James Junkin,
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, and myself, Dr. Martin. So, James, here we are. First episode, The Risk Matrix. I will say that you are the one who named this. So kudos to you. I love the title. This is our first time getting back together after about 6 months, 8 months of a leave of absence from any type of video discussion. You and I worked together many times on my former podcast, and here we are together. I'm excited to have you as a co-host, and I've got a perfect topic for us to start with.
Okay, what you got?
Okay. Paper safety is not safety.
Paper safety is not safety.
Yeah, paper safety is not safety, says I.
Says I too. And I run into a lot of paper safety organizations these days. And you know, the topic right now, just getting back from the American Society of Safety Professionals conference down in San Antonio, great conference. Shout out to those folks that helped plan that and all the speakers, and especially the people that were there exhibiting. Learned a lot from that, but you can see that the topic is back to preventing serious injuries and fatalities. We've experienced a rise in serious injuries and fatality rates in the U.S. based on the latest numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. And everyone's concerned on that. Everybody's trying to come up with, how do we lower our SIF rates? How do we get workers home safe from high hazard jobs and fulfill VARAFORCE's mission, which is, I love that mission because it's my mission. It's what I do. It's what you do. It's why we got into safety. You know, safety is not just about following the rules, the regulations. You've heard people say all of OSHA's rules and regulations are written in blood. And I believe that, but sometimes we say it and it becomes cliche. But when you actually experience it, when you actually have to go and investigate and you see gaps between what we say we do and what we actually do, you really understand what that means. You really understand what it means.
And I love this topic, right? And I totally agree with you, but I will say this, right? We spend a lot of our time in safety, writing policies and procedures and safety manuals and all those kinds of things. And then we go out on site, or some safety professionals might not ever go out on site. And this stuff trickles down to the workers on the site, and what do? I worked in construction for a very long time, and I can tell you what happens when you go out on site. Somebody hands you a binder, and it's full of all that stuff that the safety professional wrote, or maybe some well-meaning project manager wrote, or whatever. And what do? The first thing they do is they hand you the binder and they say, hurry up and read this. We got to get to work.
Got to get to work. Or this is what I see a lot of.
Okay.
You know, the advent of the third-party verification system created an opportunity to streamline the pre-qualification process. And many organizations are those that collect that data. They collect policies, they collect personal injury statistics.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the things that I find that's different about VARAFORCE, because they collect the same things, is VARAFORCE is a company founded by safety professionals, run by safety professionals, with the intent of focusing back on the worker. So when we get, no matter what pre-qualification system we use, an A, a green, or whatever, that doesn't equal the presence of safety. That just means you have satisfied the precursors for safety. And there's a gap. And there's a gap in the minds of management. There's a gap sometimes in the minds of safety professionals. And there's a gap when we get this big old stack of policies and procedures. Now, are policy and procedures important? Absolutely. You know, as president of Mariner Gulf Consulting and Services, one of the things we do is write thousands of policies and procedures every year for contractors to use and to implement as a roadmap to safety. It's compliance in one aspect, but if implemented, it's a roadmap to safety. So what I find is many people don't know what their policies are. They don't know what their procedures are. They don't have a robust auditing program that's required by their hiring client or by their third-party verification system. And you know, it's no secret. I have a relationship with Veriforce and have for many years. They do things or have services that go beyond just the pre-qualification. Pre-qualification is important, but are you doing what you say you're doing? And that's one of the separators from that. So they're responsible for our show, but at the same time, I'm a real advocate for moving from paper safety to real safety. And real safety is, do you do what you say you're going to do? Now, look, I'm from the country, and I break it down simple. I'm from Alabama. Roll Tide, which a lot of people don't think I'm very smart because of that, but you know, it is what it is.
I mean, I guess it depends, right?
It depends. Okay, I'll let you off the hook. It depends. Do they have football?
I think you're pretty smart, but I think
do they have football in New Hampshire? No.
We have the Patriots in
No.
Boston.
Boston has the Patriots. That's not New Hampshire, but this is not a geography class.
Okay.
Okay, this is
All
not.
right.
But I guess my point is in saying this is we have to move beyond as a profession to doing what we say we're going to do. And there is a disconnect. So providing auditing services, that's something Veriforce does. They provide auditing services and to go out there and to move beyond, hey, do you have a roster? Okay, you got a roster, you trained your people. But let's go talk to the people and see if the training got from the classroom to the people in the field. You know,
auditing, compliance assistance, consulting help. There are a lot of things that go into taking it from the printed page to actual application, right?
And it's in line with ISO 45001 and Z10. I mean, you're an expert in that. So getting paper safe to real safe, to me, and I'd like you to respond to this, safety is pretty simple. And that's where I was going with my comments about being from Alabama in the country and just, you know, some people not thinking I'm very smart. But for me, safety is really simple. It's about identifying hazards. I want you to respond to this. Identifying hazards, assessing risk, because we're not going to reduce all risk to zero. We need to figure out what our risk tolerance is as compared to what the OSHA regulations are and maybe some contractual requirements, and then putting proper controls in place in the planning stage of the work. What do you think?
So you just planned out our next 5 or 6 shows. Okay, so there you go. I agree with you. Okay, I agree with you that there has to be a method to our madness. Okay, and paper written policies, while they give us the underpinnings of a method, right? They don't give us the method unless they're specifically tailored to the job that we're going to do. They're specifically tailored to the company that is doing the work, and it's specific to the services that are performed, specific to the products that are manufactured if you're in a manufacturing environment. All of those things come into play, and you can't get there with just a simple policy like you upload to some of these portals. Okay.
Right.
I have said many other times, and you can be my witness, that if you give me 5 minutes and your login, I can make just about anybody go green in insert here pre-qualification portal. If there's no stopgap in that pre-qualification portal, if there is no live audit, there is no audit by a professional who knows what they're looking at and what to look for, what the hazards are, looks at stuff with a different set of eyes when they get on site, then we have no way to look at our operations and actually verify that what we're saying in our policy is what we're doing, and what we're doing is what's in our policy.
Amen.
Without that, you have nothing. Okay, because pre-qualification is just what it says it is. If you're just going for pre-qualification, it's like if I send you my resume for a job, that's the first step, right? It's the first step. I'm putting my foot in the door.
I don't want to denigrate qualification. Pre-qualification is the first step, because how do you know who you're going to select if you don't pre-qualify?
Knock, knock. Who's there? Stick your foot in the door. That's what I'm doing with my resume. If I'm applying for a job with Mariner Golf Consulting, that's what I'm doing with pre-qualification. If I'm, say, going to a big hiring client, I'm saying, knock, knock. Who's there? The door opens. I stick my foot in the door. That's what.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. Right.
And one of the things I like about VeriForce and the way we sort of do things, and I say we because I've been aligned with them for many years, is there are processes for hiring clients to use beyond just pre-qualification, right? Pre-qualification, like you said, get your foot in the door, but it doesn't equal the presence of safety. And just because you have good personal injury statistics, Todd Conklin said it best: the lack of injuries does not equal the presence of safety. So with the tools that I've been associated with VeriForce, their auditing process is one that I participated in, and I feel very strongly about. Mr. Richard Emmerling, you've heard of me talk about him before. 47 years as a safety professional in the oil and gas industry. He's forgot more about safety than I'll ever know. He helped develop that audit process, and it digs deep. It's a deep dive assessment to see, are you doing what you say you're doing, to identify risk, not only to the workers of the contract, but to the other contractors that may work with them, to the subcontractors that they may work with them, to all the way up to the risk that may also be passed on to the hiring client. So that's something I think is a little bit different, right? A little bit different. There are a lot of pre-qualification systems that are out there. Pre-qualification is one piece of what should be a dynamic and robust risk assessment when choosing your contract. And very often it's too late.
So let's go here, right? When you did the intro, you said software is a solution. Okay, I'm going to take that one step farther, and I'm going to say, well, I'm going to tie in the name of our show, right? Risk matrix. It's a whole matrix, right? It's a risk solution, right? Pre-qualification in and of itself, safety policies in and of themselves, safety manuals in and of themselves are not a solution, right? A full spectrum solution. Okay, they are one piece in a myriad of factors that come into play when you're trying to affect the presence of safety, right? And you're right. I mean, like you started talking about SIFs, right?
Right.
Just because our injuries have rapidly decreased over the years, okay, I mean, they're not approaching zero when you look at the BLS, but let's say we have some of these companies that say we're approaching zero, we believe in zero, we're going to get to zero. Just because you see a downward slope in that line doesn't mean that there's an equally downward slope in the SIF rate. Okay.
Right.
And just because you don't have a lot of little injuries doesn't mean you're not going to have one big catastrophic one, right? And that's where the matrix comes in. That's where the full spectrum solution comes in. That's where software as a solution comes in, is that there's many different components that have to go in and act upon the hazards in order to minimize the risk.
You know, I've spoken about this. I first was inspired by Fred Manuel in his study on comparing CIF rates to personal injury statistics. And he went back like to 1990, 93, something like that. And he took the chart of total recordable injury rates across the United States. And you can see a steady, really nice decline from about 9 to around 2. And we do a really good job in industry now of preventing the things that are what I call knick-knack injury, right? Cuts, sprains, not saying it doesn't hurt the individual or there's not any pain involved, but it's certainly not classified as a serious injury or fatality, right? We're doing.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, just real quick, or lying about.
Or lying about. There you go.
Little
There's
injuries.
some of that. There's some of that. No doubt. No doubt. And there, I'll tell you the other side of that too is some people put things on their 300 logs that aren't OSHA recordable. This OSHA recordability issue is a whole new episode. But based on the data from the BLS, we have a nice steady decline down to around 2. But if you overlay that with the fatality trend and look at the last 10 years, look at the last 12 years, 60,000 people have died in America's workplaces in the last 12 years. That is astonishing. It is astonishing in the modern era with the technology we have, with the regulations we have, with safety professionals going to school and getting degrees and all sorts of certification programs that people that want to can further their careers. We still kill 60,000 people in the workplace over the last 12 years. And we're seeing an uptick. And I think one of the things is, it is kind of the topic of this episode, paper safe. And in safety, we generate a lot of paper. We have policies, we have work permits, we have JSAs, we have incident investigations, we have all these things that we do to generate paper and checklists and reminders and all these things that we have. And we can have all that, but that doesn't equal the presence of safety. The presence of safety, and I want you to respond to what I said earlier, really is simple. What are the hazards? What are the risks? What are the controls? That's it. That's it. But too many times what I see is on paper, we have a hazard and risk assessment program. We have a JSA. We have what we should be doing for confined space and what we should be doing for respiratory and what we should be doing for all these other programs. But it's not making it to the field. So
sign here. And then sign here.
Sign here. So what do you think about my simplistic safety? Is it too simple?
Well, I think those are the ingredients of safety. Okay. I'm more in the line of those are the ingredients that you need. But the ingredient, all those things need to be wound into actual practice. And but what I mean by that is you can't practice safety if you're not on site. It's hard. It's very hard. It's very hard, like you said, to do that without an audit or a site visit or a safety professional there or somebody who only sees the site every 6 months or 12 months. It's very hard to do that, right? And I'm not a big fan of policing, so don't get me wrong about this. I'm not saying police. Well, maybe former, but I'm not a fan of policeman safety. Okay. I'm not a fan of being there all the time and hovering over and say putting on your hard hat and all those types of things. But what I'm saying is that if we continually short sight on oversight, application, knowledge management, training, all of these other hazard identification, all the things that you mentioned, if we continually short sight ourselves on those things, we will never get to safety, right?
Exactly. Let me throw this in there. That's why I was proud to be part of the auditing team for VeriForce's Professional Services Division, because the audit that we use at VeriForce addresses this. It includes a manager interview where we go out and we talk to the manager. One of the questions we have, how often you make it to the job site? How do you define leading visibly? How often are you reviewing the effectiveness of your safety management system? We talk to employees to see where the gap is. Because if you want to know where your next accident is, chum up with some employees, they'll tell you. They'll be honest. They will come through. We look at the policies and procedures. We see if there's implementation. And that's where some, fellow auditors out there in the safety profession, it's almost a check the box mentality. It is, okay, do you do training? Well, we talked about electrical safety awareness. Well, what does that mean? I need to see what you're training on based on the hazards that your employees are encountering. We trained on confined space. But when I talk to the employee, they have no idea even how to define a confined space. We talk to about PPE, or here's one that comes up all the time, fire extinguisher training. They have fire extinguishers in the truck. They're expected to be used in the event of an emergency, right? But no one can really go back and remember any of the training they've done. It's been so long ago. So these audits dig into the safety management system in implementation. And too many times, because I've audited also for other verification systems, right? Too many times that protocol stops way too short. It's way too short. Do you have the right form? Check. Do you have the right roster? Check. Do you have the right policy? Check. With never, ever having a field portion of the verification.
And it's not just about the checks. It's not just about the checks, right?
We go into the field, Dr. Martin, we go in the field with the guys and the gals that go out there and go to work every day. The people that do the work, that where the boots get muddy.
Yeah.
And we see, are we creating the presence of safety? And if we're not creating the presence of safety, one of the things I think it sets the VeriForce audit process apart from paper safety is this. We tell them how to fix it. We tell them how to fix it. What good is it for you to give me a report that says all this is wrong, go fix it? If they knew how to fix it, they would have fixed it before we got out here. Most of the time, it didn't have a problem. They didn't know they had a problem.
So I'm a skeptic. Okay. So I think sometimes they know they didn't know they had a problem. Sometimes they do know they had a problem. And the skill comes in, and I'm just going to drop the same name you dropped earlier, is when somebody like Mr. Embling comes out and he starts asking the questions, because it's not just about, and I started to say this earlier, it's not just about check, do they have this? Check, do they have this? Check, do they have? It's also about having somebody who's got enough experience, somebody who's got enough know-how, education, a combination thereof, to know when somebody's telling the truth or not. And I'm going to give you an example. You mentioned the management questions. How do you define leadership? How do you define these types of things, right? Live audits, good auditors, okay? And we got to have Richard Emberling on and have the two of you kind of go at this, because you both have used the same system. How do you go about making sure all the boxes are checked in an audit, but also go about ground truthing and being intuitive about what companies are telling you about their psychological safety, their psychosocial safety, their leadership models. I mean, yes, there's a lot of times a disparity will show up when you talk from management to the workers, right? This is what management says, the workers say no, right? This is what management says. Some of it is verified, some of it is not. But sometimes the nuances don't come out unless you have a skilled interviewer, a skilled auditor.
Oh yes, that you are 1000% correct. And I've worked with other auditors, and depending on the protocols, sometimes they don't understand that auditing and assessing is an art. It's an art. It's understanding what the job scope is. It's understanding the pressure, because there is pressure. There are not unlimited resources. Contractors do not have unlimited resources. They have finite resources, right? It's understanding the challenges of employee turnover in an industry that is a manual labor industry intensive, right? Construction, oil and gas in the upstream, midstream type things, sometimes in the downstream. It's having real world experience to know when you're making a recommendation, that recommendation isn't pie in the sky. That recommendation is something based on years of experience. Now, I'll tell you when the light bulb comes on. When you kill somebody. Okay? When you
I
kill
know you're right about that. I know you're right about that, but that makes me just, it makes my heart sink to say when the light bulb comes on is when somebody is killed, when somebody dies. Okay? That's not when the light bulb should be coming on. And let's just go back to this, right? We need to educate people that just having some sort of safety at all, meaning paper safety or a few policies or a tailgate meeting, it doesn't mean you're safe. It means you're doing things, but a lot of times we can do things in our lives that don't mean a hill of beans. Okay. And we go through these motions every day, and lots of things that we do. You could do 100 things a day and only 2 of them make any difference, or
Well,
1 of them. Sometimes none of what you do in a day makes a difference, but you must work towards more of your things per day making a difference. And that's the essence of safety, right? It's not just resting on our laurels. It's not just creating a safety program. It's not just creating these policies. It is continuous improvement. And you cannot do that. You cannot do that if you're not having outside eyes coming in and looking at things through a different lens. You cannot do that without experience or education, hopefully both, doesn't have to be, but something that makes you some type of an expert in what you're looking at.
What I see, and I do a lot of audits, and I do a lot of serious injury and fatality investigations. I do a lot of OSHA representation. I work with some of the nation's top law firms, particularly on the fatality side. And what I find most common is this. It's very rare that I find a company that doesn't have any safety. They have fragments of a safety management system. They may have,
and they may not know any better.
And a lot of times they don't know any better. They say, well, my hiring client, my operator, the owner that we're working for through construction.
I thought somebody else was taking care of this.
They told us to do this. They told us to do that. And they don't understand you're responsible for your employees. Period. And it becomes, what I mean by this with the light coming on, Dr. Martin, is it becomes so obvious, so clear post-incident. None of these things are super complex. They're not super complex. you can see it in a chain of events how it led up to this particular incident that cost someone their life.
Mhm.
And to dig into that, to really get to the causal factor, you have to change your mentality from behavior being an outcome to behavior being a symptom of deeper problems within your safety management system. Okay. Many
See, now
times,
you're open.
go ahead.
I was going to say you're opening up a whole nother can of worms.
It is, but
I
it's
mean,
directly related to paper safety.
I agree. I agree. But here's the thing, James. This is the first episode, okay? And we've opened up topics and actually probably booked our first guest with Richard Emberling. We have to tell him about it.
Softball
but
season's over, so he'll be available.
These are all the types of things that you guys are going to hear us talking about on this new YouTube channel, podcast, wherever we plan on putting this out. You're going to hear all kinds of good stuff from James and I. You're probably going to hear sometimes that we agree, sometimes we don't agree. When we don't agree,
I'm
we're
right.
cordial. James is right. Well, I don't know. I feel like we both have a different viewpoint that we're going to come in on, and so I don't want to blow our whole thing during the first episode, but I will say this: I think I'm happy to be back. Are you happy to be back?
I am happy to be back. I'm happy to be back, and if I can sum up this episode with this: third-party verification systems are important because they streamline the contractor selection process. My advice to you, partner with one that can give you more, to assess the risk in your supply chain. Because the mission for all of us in safety is the same mission Veriforce has, which is to help workers get home safe from high hazard jobs. And I'm passionate about that. I'm committed to it. That's why I'm a safety professional.
So I'm going to alter that slightly, and I'm going to say my mission is to bring as many workers home safe from all jobs.
I like that.
All jobs.
All jobs.
At high hazard ones especially, but to bring workers home safe, period. Okay. And to take that serious injury and fatality and the fatality statistics and make that a steeper downward trend. Okay. Because I think we can do better.
I know we can.
But I know we can.
Next episode, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Go ahead, hit subscribe, like, and put some comments down in the comment section. We love to see your comments, and we'll respond to you. We're regular people just like you. We both have full-time jobs, but we'll get back to you. We love the discussion because that's how we get better. Learning something every day to fulfill that mission. So on behalf of Dr. Martin, thank you for joining us, and thank you, Veriforce, for sponsoring The Risk Matrix.
The Risk Matrix!